All right. Okay. I think we're good. I think we're all right. All right. Welcome everyone to Animbreak. I think this is episode 8 and February, for the month of February. And today we got, or tonight, I guess, we got a good friend of mine, actually, somebody I got to go way back with, but his name is Shawn Wilson. He's a lead animator at Respawn. And I guess for anyone who hasn't really seen these shows before, we interview game animators and we hear about their breaking in story. And I feel like everyone has a very unique breaking in story, regardless of the route they took. And we talk a little bit about that, and we take live questions at the end. So if anyone has questions, just pop them in the comments, and we'll definitely try to hit them. I'll kind of remind you guys a little bit later. And tonight, actually, Shawn brought a bunch of process videos from Titanfall 2, and we're going to get into some of the making of stuff and kind of talk about his workflow and stuff like that. So if you guys got questions about that, definitely fire away on that. But Shawn, welcome. Let's hear first question. How did you break into this industry?
Well, I guess it all started back with getting inspired as a kid. I think watching Jurassic Park for the first time just kind of introduced me to this world of just movie magic entertainment. I was like, yes, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until like after college that I decided I wanted to get into like actual animation. So I went to the University of Maryland just to study like studio art and digital media. And I think 6 months prior to graduation, I decided that I wanted to get into animation. It was a little too late by then. So I kind of like browsed around the internet, and I came across these animation mentor reels. I was like, oh man, these are great. I want to, let's do this. So I signed up, and after graduating college around 2008, I did my 2 years doing AM. But around that time, I think the economy kind of crashed.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let's do AM, but let's do it overseas because I can't get any like work around here. So I did a lot of freelance work and just taught English in Korea, and then and did AM at night, and then
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you so you didn't actually start taking AM until you were. So did you move to Korea or South Korea for a job first?
I did a lot of like indie film production as freelance and taught like business English stuff during the daytime.
Oh, cool.
And I did that for like a year and a half. And during that time, I also took AM at night. So didn't get a lot of sleep. So it was like 5 hours a day for a whole year.
Yeah, I bet because probably the time difference, and I guess you got to experience kind of an online school from overseas, because a lot of teachers are obviously in North America time zone,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So it was a unique experience. Um, it was a learning curve for sure. And even after 18 months of doing AM, I still didn't really grasp like the fundamentals of animation in general, like the basic principles.
Mm.
So after graduating AM, I came back to the States, and then I spent like another 4 to 5 months of my demo reel and applying, and just I think I submitted like 50 applications, and
Mm-hmm.
I went, like maybe one or two or three would bite back. But um, I had a lot of friends who were already kind of working in the industry, and a lot of them were already at Rhythm and Hues,
Mm.
and they kind of forwarded my reel to like the producers and managers, and and that was my first kind of foot in the door. and they flew me out, settled in LA, and kind of got my hands dirty through visual effects.
So when you moved back from, let me back it up just a little bit, which is like when you were going to University of Maryland, you were studying. You said graphic design, or?
Yeah, it was like basically traditional studio art, just drawing, painting, nothing, no, I guess, specific kind of art. And then some graphic design and some digital media. So it was like a generalist kind of degree.
So when you were going to school there,
Yeah.
and you said you kind of came across animation like right before you graduated,
Yeah.
like how did you? Was it kind of like, were you not enjoying what you were on the path to doing at school, or did you just kind of see something that you're like, whoa, that looks way cooler?
Yeah. I think I remember I took a class around my senior year, and it was a flash course. And one of the assignments was it was a bouncing ball. And just doing that assignment alone, I was like, I can do this for the rest of my life. This is so much fun. And it was the crappiest bouncy ball flash animation, but that just kind of sparked my interest. And then I just went online. I was like, oh, are there any other schools that kind of offer animation courses? And AM came up, and I just saw their first two student reels they released,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just blown away. I was like, yeah, let's go for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So another kind of follow-up question was, when you were in Korea and then you came back, did you just move back to Maryland then?
Yeah.
Okay.
After Korea, I moved back to the Maryland, DC area, and to wrap up AM, did more freelance gigs, taught like Adobe classes from like After Effects and Photoshop while trying to finish up AM and working my demo reel, and
Okay.
then yeah, from there just I moved out to Cali. So
And I guess at the time, I think it was pretty, like, VFX Scene was still pretty hot in LA, and Rhythm Hues was still pretty hot at the time, or pretty big, I guess.
yeah, it was a good stepping stone because there were a lot of like incredibly talented like seniors and leads there that like Rhythm and Hughes they were known for like their creature animations, and they were really keen into just solid creature mechanics, body mechanics, and they knew how to if they wanted to go like do like realistic creature animations, they knew all the tips and tricks, and they knew what elements to pull and push if they want to do like a more of an exaggerated show. And yeah, so I learned a lot of my creature stuff from Rhythm and Hughes. And but it was also around the time when the whole Life of Pi fiasco happened, and Rhythm kind of started to sink. So
You got an inside view on that?
it's just a small little view, but yeah, it was like a happy time and a sad time at this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was your first gig, right? That's a good first gig,
Yeah.
working on some
No,
films.
I was super lucky. Like I have to like thank a lot of my AM peers just for reeling me in, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have had that first foot in the door.
That's a great network to have, obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, can you kind of like maybe tell us like kind of how, like, obviously your friends or your friends kind of maybe referred you, like how did it just work? Like, did somebody just post something up on a board, or was it kind of word of mouth? Like,
It was a little bit of both. So I wrapped up my reel, and I kind of sent it out to a few friends, and they're like, "Oh, this is pretty cool," and they just kind of sent it off to the HR, and then it was pretty straightforward.
okay.
Yeah.
VFX companies don't generally give tests, do they?
Not that I know of, not or at least not Rhythm.
Not a
So
rhythm, right? All right, cool. So what was your path after Rhythm
After
Heals?
that, well, after that, uh, then I went back to the freelance route again and just going from job to job, working on not even on animation work. It's just more like PA work and indie film productions. And then I would say like 4 or 5 months later, I applied to a little place called Spark,
Ah, Spark.
and that's when I met you. And I think Spark was another huge animation milestone for me. Like if Rhythm was the whole like uh, learning about how to do creature animation, Spark was like learning how to do solid, efficient blocking and just analyzing lots of reference footage. Because I think the Ninja Gaiden spin-off game that we worked on, that whole entire game was like we just shot hundreds of hours of reference footage. So over the course of those 2 years, you really get to learn how to efficiently analyze footage and trying to translate the essence of that into like a super stylized cartoony animation. And that was up to that point, like my animation skills were like, but that really solidified like my foundation base from that point forward.
Um, I think it's always like at the end of a project. I feel like there's there's always like gigs and gigs of animator reference video.
Yeah,
Like no matter what the project is, it's just like this huge video archive of like embarrassing video reference.
yeah.
Um, but
There are lots of those.
oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I remember the security guard in the
yeah,
parking lot. Most people like they don't really you know like they see you doing reference and they don't really know what you're doing. They know there's a camera there and but they won't really kind of maybe they'll stare for a few seconds and then kind of be on their way and
these
you,
people are crazy, man.
yeah they would the security guard at Spark would he just pop a chair down, he'd just like be watching us. He's just like, oh,
Yeah,
these guys are shooting reference, I got to get out there and I got to watch them, and it's like a crowd.
yeah. The first few times you're like a little too self-aware, but after like the 40th time, you're just like, we gotta shoot this footage,
Right.
gotta get it in game, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
um yeah, so obviously we're at Spark together, worked on a project there. um after Spark, what did you do next?
So after Spark, it was an easier transition to another studio, and I kind of applied around for different places around LA, and then uh, I don't even remember Kristin.
Yep, shout out to
Yeah.
Kristin Altamirano.
Her husband Mike saw my reel from Spark, and he kind of forwarded to the leads there at Respawn, and they initially they invited me to kind of just visit, so I didn't really prepare. I thought, oh, I'm just gonna visit the studio and check it out, but I didn't realize that it was an actual interview. And as soon as I entered their conference room, it was just like a King Arthur, like knights of the round table of the whole animation team. I'm like, oh no.
The the kind of like come and have a chat but turns
Yeah,
into an interview switcheroo is just hilarious, right? It's like,
yeah, good old bait and switch.
right, just come in and talk, and then all of a sudden it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
six
But
hours.
no, the like chemistry, like we kicked it off right away. It was super laid back and it reminded me a lot of the guys from Spark. So I was like, oh, I can see myself working with these guys for a long time. And in fact, the leads there, like all of them, and that was like a third animation milestone for me because uh, like you had like Mark Grigsby and Paul Mazzarelli, like these animators um, help contribute in the Call of Duty franchise,
Hmm.
like going back to like Modern Warfare. And then you had like Bruce Fairleys, who was around since like when DreamWorks was doing 2D animation.
Wow,
So there was like decades worth of like wisdom that I learned a lot from those guys. So
nice.
yeah, and then just power through, made Titanfall 2, and here I am.
So when you did you join up at Respawn when it was still in Titanfall 1, or were you, it was already kind of kicking Titanfall 2 already?
No. It was I think I joined a day after they launched Titanfall 1.
Oh wow. So
Yeah,
it was happy times.
it was happy times. Yeah. So it was good because I got to. It was actually a good time to go in because they just wrapped up Titanfall 1, and there was a lot of downtime, so I got to kind of, go into pre-production mode and get used to the house style and workflow because I was just getting out of the Ninja Gaiden game, and it was super over the top, zany, fast timings, wacky spacing kind of animation, and then I had to like switch gears into like super real, like kind of like really grounded but subtly stylistic, and that was it took a few months to kind of get those gears turning.
What do you like? I'm curious. What do you think is like? Because obviously it's just a little bit of shift in kind of the way you look at things and timing and posing. Like,
Mhm.
what's the kind of challenging thing for you, or what was the challenge then? Kind of going from because we were really going over the top, right?
Yeah, yeah.
With the Ninja Guy and stuff.
hmm Um, I think a lot of it was doing exercises. So I took a lot of the mocap data and started practicing with it because it was like really my first time in which I got to really get my hands into motion capture, and I wasn't really used to it. And for the longest time, I was a little bit against it, but now I'm like I totally embrace it as a tool, and just like trying to figuring out workflows and how to pull out the spirit of the
Hmm.
performance capture and taking those elements and elevating it into a new form, and that kind of helped me get used to the style and aiming for like a realistic kind of animation, and then putting my own flair to it to give it a little jolt
Yeah, yeah.
spark to it. Yeah,
That's what we call the Swilson touch.
this was
But yeah, that's always interesting, right? It's like you meet or I guess sometimes when people are first working with mocap, at least in my case, it's kind of like working with the data and trying to make it feel more real in a way, right?
right.
But I don't know where the switch happened, where I was kind of like instead of making it feel more real or smoothing it out even more, whatever it is, like you just said, the essence, right? Like
Yeah,
like trying to pull the essence of what you're trying to get versus like just kind of making it clean and nice.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Like from the beginning, I knew that I'm not gonna get this super incredibly polished like mocap end result. Like it starts to get into this weird uncanny valley, and I told myself, well, you know what? What I know how to do is just kind of give it enough flair so it kind of takes on a style of its own,
yeah.
and that actually changed up my whole workflow. So I have like uh, my more traditional way of animating, which is like step blocking, splining, polishing, and so forth. But with working with mocap data, it's almost the process for me is it's like almost in reverse, right? So it's almost like you're starting off with polishing and you're working your way back to blocking.
Hmm.
So like for example, like I would get mocap data and I would start to trim out all the fat to the like the asset that I need. Um, and then from there, I would just kind of stretch, push, scale, and really work the timing and the spacing of that data. I'm not like worried about the arcs or the pops as long as I get the feeling of the energy and flow from the performance. But that's what I'm trying to capture or trying to work in. And then from there, I would just bake all the keys down on ones again because a lot of the scaling kind of put the keys in like subframes.
Hmm.
And the goal is each step trying to keep it clean and manageable. And and then from there, you do like another pass at cleaning up. So all the arcs from the data can be a little wonky sometimes. So just go in the graph editor, and sometimes you just kind of smooth out the curves, or in other cases, if it's like just too crazy, I would just highlight a chunk in the timeline and just hit delete and just kind of keyframe in between. And then after that, keep working backwards. Now you have like an animation where all the arcs are pretty clean. The splining of the graph is pretty smooth. And then I just throw in one layer and work back the golden, like the beats and or work back the poses, like the golden poses, and then throw in some little noise, and and then you just keep working backwards until it's done.
I never really thought about it that way. But that is, that's kind of the way it goes,
the traditional way, you start off with golden poses, and you break it down with your you break down spacing with your in-betweens, and then with the mocap, you end with the golden poses and the breakdowns. At least the way I know it. So.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a cool kind of explanation for it. So, well, one more. So let's get into some of your process stuff, right? We have some cool videos that you wanted to kind of talk about. I guess one more question before we do that is like, you're a lead animator now, and did you come in as a lead, or did you?
No, I came in just as an animator, and then just kind of worked my way up. And then as we had, the studio got bigger and expand the team, so and I just got promoted towards the end. So yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah. All right, let me pull some stuff here, and I kind of just queued it up in a playlist, and we can kind of like I'm hoping that we'll just kind of play it through, and oops, it's on my other monitor here. Let me share my screen. Share. All right. I think everyone can see this. So, no, it's I appreciate you sharing all this stuff. This is really cool, kind of like behind the scenes stuff. I mean, if you want to talk through some of it, you totally can. So.
Yeah. This was a level done by one of our designers, Jake Keaton. It was like one of the time traveling levels, and usually early in the process, designers would kind of like gray box block out there the flow and the layout, and then we would go in there and kind of play through it and just kind of bounce ideas back and forth. So like in the beginning of the video, you can kind of see me just going through the level, and I'm like, oh, let's wouldn't it be cool to put a little kind of jump scare creature vignette, and then Jake would be like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. So I'll do like a game capture of me going through the level, and then I would splice in my play blast and other vignette that I had kind of imagined and show it to the designer. I'm like, oh, this is cool. They'll throw it in a game, and then from there, we just kind of I'll start blocking it out and then going through like the normal process.
Okay, so when you say kind of splice it in, you just get that little vignette in as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible,
yeah. So the goal is to not be so tied up in the granular details. It's more just trying to capture the gameplay, the feeling of it, and as long as it gets that initial reaction from whoever's playing it, then you're kind of on the right track. Because if that works on the most like rudimental, like basic primitive level with the blocking, then from there you can really flesh out the staging and really get in there and do like you're blocking on 2s and 3s, and so the key is to make sure it makes sense before you deep dive into the animation itself.
And when you're like very preliminary, like putting in like key poses even for some of this stuff, is it kind of moving visibility wise? Is it moving past designer, animator, programmer? Like, is it being play tested even in its rudimentary form? Or
Yeah, no, that's like I think getting a Kleenex test or like just having folks playing the level with at its rudimentary form is super important, because uh, you gain a lot of valuable information just by observing these players or your coworkers playing it for the first time, because you get to see what they're reacting to. Are they even reacting to the moment? And if not, then something's wrong, and you got to kind of go back to the drawing board and come up with other ideas. And if they are reacting to the moment, then okay, let's figure out how we can take that and push it even further. And a lot of it's just, it's a pretty incredibly collaborative process between the designer and animator. And then we'll get the audio guy and the VFX to kind of start that whole conversation going. So,
yeah, I decided to kind of loop through each video. That way I don't have to rewind back. But how does the kind of anim approval process work there? Like in terms of like moving on to the next stage for animators?
I would say initially we would try to get a lot of like blocked in moments, and we would try to capture all the beats as clearly as possible. Not just so that the animators and the team are able to kind of get feedback, but we want to make sure that it's clear to like all departments across the studio, right? Like anyone can pick it up and understand what's happening. And once we can get a general vibe of that working, then that's kind of like a mental approval amongst ourselves. I'm like, okay, it's working. Let's kind of, all right, let's move on to the next step and let's block it. Let's break it down even further.
Okay.
So it's like, it's pretty, in that sense, it's pretty flat structure, but we still get a lot of like feedback from within the animation department, but we get tons of feedback from folks outside the animation department as well.
Nice.
Because at the end of the day, because I mean, the audience is, the average, I would say they're not like animation geeks, so no one's gonna like frame by frame of work, but they're just gonna react to what they're seeing. So
cool. Yeah, no, it's just like it's non-animators, just players, right? So
yeah.
I'm gonna load up. I'm just gonna kind of load another one up here. This one is the dish fall.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you're showing like kind of like the blocking within Maya. It's a cool moment.
So this was actually one of the first vignettes I kind of tackled with the Hero Titan. And at the time, we didn't really have a story treatment or character layout for this guy. So I just kind of winged it, and let's just having fun with it. And let's just go ahead and have him fall off the dish, and let's have the player let's have the robot catch the player and do a little funny thumbs up. But it actually kind of like going back to like making sure it gravitates towards the rest of the team. Like everyone was digging it, and we just like, all right, let's kind of go with it and take it to the end.
Nice. When you're doing like first person, this is kind of like your jump into like first person stuff as well, right?
This was also an exercise at the time for me to kind of get used to with first person animations. one of our animators, Raina Serrano, and the other animator, Mark Grigsby, like their first person animation stuff is super top notch. Like they have like this incredible control over their timing of their first person animations. Like every movement feels very purposeful, and I wanted to grab that and kind of work it into my own flow. And what I've learned from them was just keep every movement clear and make sure that it just flows from one beat to another. And they're really good at not getting in awkward movements in animation. So, yeah.
So would you say that's kind of like the key to that kind of purposeful first person type movement? Like,
yeah, like I'm not as strong in the first person workflow. Like Rain and Mark, they're like I always look up to their stuff and just look for all the little magic and tidbits from their work. But for me, it's like keeping things pretty simple. Like you can see in the blocking, like I kind of started out a little crazy, but towards the end, I simplify the camera and some of the movements and just kind of keeping it very maintained so that it just reads clearly to any viewer.
So when you're doing like this is like super high intensity, a lot of movement shot, like what are you kind of animating first? Are you just kind of like animating the camera itself first and then thinking of the limbs as supplementary parts, or are you actually blocking in your camera with these kind of flailing moments at the same time?
Oh, no. Starting off, I would kind of just move the whole, because like our camera is like attached to the rig. Mm-hmm. So I would just like, as a first pass, just animate the whole rig and just get that first initial camera flow. No noise, no movements. It's pretty linear. But that way, it's almost like previs in a sense in which I kind of get the timing of the sequence. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I would block in the body elements and I would only add back in the camera noise at the very end. So it's pretty contained. I would say 80% of it, and then towards the end, I'll start frame by framing the poses, and then to finish it off, I would like add a layer and start adding. If I would do like an action with the arm this way, I will wait a few frames and have the camera kind of follow in a delayed reaction and start adding a little jolts and tilts but while maintaining like the distance, like focal point, pretty, I guess, centered to the screen. So another thing I try to avoid is a lot of roll of the camera as much as possible. Like if you were like to shake your head back and forth, right? Like your sense of the horizon is still maintained, as you still perceive it as flat, right? Mm-hmm. But if you were to animate the camera doing this, then people start getting sick. So
that's true, yeah.
Yeah. So the best thing I can one of the rules I try to stick to is try not to go too crazy. Like I can go crazy on the translations, mm-hmm. and the pitch and the yaw, but don't go too crazy on the like the Z roll axis.
Okay.
Yeah, and try to keep the center of focus pretty maintained. Like everything around it can be a little distracting, but as long as what you're seeing in front of you is pretty contained, and yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. That's a good tip. So you mentioned when you just animate the body straight out in the beginning as if it's previs, are you basically like keeping the arms and everything out of view? You just want to focus on the movement.
totally focusing on very clean staging and composition because I want to have like a basically like a canvas to work with.
Okay.
Um, and that's just it's very like storyboardy previs kind of way. Uh, but once you start to block in like your body movements and stuff, then you'll start to adjust the camera timing. You'll find yourself, oh, I need to add 10 frames here, or I need to extend this fall a bit here, and
Okay.
a lot of back and forth, and it's yeah.
Cool. I'll load up another one here. Execution battery. Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, this is another example of just getting in something quick and dirty and throwing it in the game. And I remember doing this execution, and I was thinking about this idea of like, all right, the designer said, we want this. There's this mechanic in which you kind of would steal the battery from this Titan, and then you would kind of, I guess, absorb the health, right? And then I'm like brainstorming, okay, how would I do that? And all right, what if the pilot kind of jumped out, kill the opponent pilot and steal the battery? But our execution window, like timing wise, is pretty limited. So I was really afraid that there were too many beats happening in that short amount of time. So I wasn't sure that if it was going to work or not. So you can see in the very beginning, throwing in that quick and dirty blocking, I was just testing the waters and making sure people were up for the idea or not. But I didn't really get any feedback at the time. It's like, all right, I'm going to kind of take it another step in. And so I went to the mocap floor, shot myself doing the Titan movements and the pilot movements. And those were like my puzzle pieces. And then from there, I just kind of, going back to my mocap process, just start chopping out data and scaling data and stretching data until all the puzzle pieces kind of work energy-wise, flow-wise, and then from there, just almost like sculpting like clay, just kind of keep chopping away until you get it to like a smooth state.
So it's basically like you guys have a stage at the studio, and you can easily just kind of just go shoot some data really quickly, and that's great. That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, our mocap supervisor Mario, like we would go on the stage like on the first day, and then within 24 hours he would have the data ready for us, and we won't touch it. We just trim out what we need to trim out and just throw it in the game right away, and just to make sure it's, so we can get a lot of eyes and feedback on it.
So this is the raw data right here then.
This is the raw data, yeah. And you can see like it's still pretty rough, and you can kind of tell how much of the data we have to like chop out and kind of scale up and down to kind of fit the like 3 to 4 second execution window. So there was, I would say this was probably the hardest execution because I had to make sure every beat like it was clear, somewhat clear. I mean, even till this day, I'm like, I'm not even sure if it still works, but.
No, it's super like it's insane. It's super complicated like choreography, but I think it's still very clear, which is I think what makes it really successful. And it's a great idea. I mean, it's just a badass idea. So.
Yeah. Originally, it had I think originally it had the camera like go in and out and turn. It was like way too noisy, and I realized that you can't have a fast performing action and a crazy camera rig happening at the same time. They're like contradicting each other. It's like craziness here and craziness there. Yeah. So at the very end, I decided to kind of just keep the camera just have like a moving hold in the static location, and just have the focus on the performance itself. Because usually I would do a lot of camera movements, but for this execution, just kind of keep it maintained.
That's a great point. I think let's see, like sorry, I'm jumping around for you guys, but I love the fact that like that you just mentioned that, because it's like I think sometimes people and I make this mistake all the time, which is like you want to have a nice busy camera that's full of life. You want your characters to be full of life, but then when there's like, you know, counting everybody in here, there's 4 different characters in here, right? And then just like that's all alive, and then and having everything move can just be insane, right? And you gotta mute something, and you gotta make something else pop. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly, and a lot of focus was a lot of focus. I put a lot of focus on the silhouettes and making sure that read clearly, because at one point I think I had like the attacking pilot behind the victim Titan, and that did not read whatsoever. And another thing to note, I would show it didn't matter where in the animation process I was, every single day I would show it to my to the animation team and to other people, just to be sure that I'm on the right track, because the turnaround on these are pretty quick, like 1 to 2 weeks. So I didn't want to go off in a tangent and have this final animation and not work. So I think getting feedback on a daily is super important.
That's pretty impressive, man. Like like a 1 to 2 week turnaround for something as kind of very complicated as that. That's awesome. All right, let's go to the execution pilot here. This is cool. Shawn in the suit.
Oh boy. Yeah. So whenever I'm doing like any motion capture, I kind of went back to my mentality and shooting reference footage back on at Spark. And it's not so much doing the action in real time, it's just making sure you're going through the body mechanics properly. Because if you're trying to rush yourself, then you tend to kind of tighten up, you don't extend your body and get like nice breaking of joints action naturally. So doing these mocap shoots, I'll just kind of go at 50% speed, because I know that once I get the data, I'm gonna speed it up like by 60% and start to break it down. So
yeah, that's another great tip, man. It's like whether you're shooting reference or doing mocap, like there's a tendency to kind of rush a little bit.
Yeah.
And be like, I gotta be full speed on this.
Yeah.
I gotta have, because that's one way to bring the intensity, right? But I think if you're methodical in your I noticed that with you. I mean, seeing you, I mean, we've shot reference so many times, but like just kind of like hitting poses and then just letting your body be natural going through that, but not necessarily worrying about like, oh, I gotta do this at like in 1.5 seconds or something like that, you know? So.
Yeah. I would only be concerned with the timing if you're doing like an acting shot, right? Because you need to like, hit certain beats at a very specific point in time. So, but when you're doing like action shots, you can just take your time and go through the motions, because you're gonna go through it and pick out your key poses, and then you're gonna go through it again and pick out your breakdown keys, and then once you have that blocking down, you're like constantly adjusting the key poses to get your timing, and then once you got the timing, you take your breakdown keys and adjust those to get your spacing. So you're tackling timing and spacing at the same time, and that kind of translates over to the motion capture process.
Nice. So when you're kind of at your desk and you're like, I need to go shoot something, make it worth my while, shoot a few things, like kind of the, you mentioned the turnaround time for the data is about a day or so, but what about you yourself? Like from the time you from the time you leave your desk, put on the suit, get yourself all like, teed up, and like, is that pretty quick?
Yeah, I would say, in some shoots I would go straight to the stage with Mario, and our other mocap guy, Grims. And we would start around 9 or 10 a.m., suit up 15 minutes, and then start shooting right away. And then we would be done before lunchtime. And then after lunch, they would just start working on the data right away. And sometimes they would get the data at the end of the day. So that kind of gives me a nice head start. And then if not, then the next day I would get the data and just trim out when I need to trim out and not even worry about touching the animation itself and just throw it in game and let it breathe for like a week.
Right.
Because it's not even worth like cleaning up and adding all this keyframing stuff on top if it doesn't work from a base level. So
that's cool. So this shot is kind of similar, right? You from mocap stage into polish.
Yeah, this is I think Mark did like a rough layout and to kind of get the idea across, and then I just kind of used that layout and basically going through the same process, going to the mocap stage and shooting it and polishing it and so forth.
Do you just the team in general kind of brainstorms these particular ideas, or how do they kind of get born?
We would, a lot of the times we would kind of bounce back ideas, and but I think for us, we do a lot of like step blocking in the beginning for a lot of the things we do, and get that and get eyes on it, and then we would show it to the animation team, and just to make sure that the idea it reads to them. So like a lot of this stuff, a lot of these animations, we started off in like very stepped key poses only, and then if the idea is good, then we just kind of take it to the mocap floor. So.
Cool.
So there's a lot of blocking and in the beginning. So.
Let's Hero Titan evolution. I love these, man. These are great. These R&D kind of poses and really trying to pop the silhouette on these.
Our Kevin Anderson, he concepted and modeled this Hero Titan, and early in the pre-production, he would give me like these proxy models, right? Like very super primitive, down to the just primitive shapes and forms, and then I would take that, and the rest of the team would take it, and we would just kind of pose them out, and we just crank out pose after pose and after pose until we kind of slowly get towards the essence of the character down, and that becomes almost like our animation model sheet Bible in a way. So you could kind of see before this, I was doing a lot of animation tests with the Hero Titan and just experimenting with different kind of styles, like a cartoony run cycle down to this teaser key art kind of reveal, which was actually inspired by the art director for Titanfall 2, Joel Emsley, and our concept artist Heath, and I took that, I took their concept art and kind of translated it into like an animated vignette to start figuring out the vibe and the atmosphere and tone of these characters. And then this was this is one of the last animation tests I did to kind of figure out the animation style for this Hero Titan. And then by this point, I'm like, all right, this is pretty much where I'm going to go with, and then from there, just kind of stick to that.
That's cool. It's so helpful to see not only these personality tests to inform yourself and other animators and just the team in general.
Yeah.
But I love, did you do this one?
Yeah.
So I gotta say something about Sean, which is like he would do these on Yaiba too. These kind of like it's like these are so helpful. I find because it's like it doesn't just inform like the posing itself. It's informing like a mood in general, and it's just like it's something that the whole like the team can kind of get behind, and yeah, it's super cool. Like I love the idea of you kind of doing these kind of things, really setting the tone and setting the mood.
Yeah, and it, I mean, like when people see the end product of, oh, they don't think nothing of it. They just, oh, the developers just kind of think of it overnight. But a lot of this stuff from the beginning of this video, like that's like pre-production to the end, like that's
That's everything, right? That's
span over
everything.
like the whole project, and you're doing tons of a lot of the work you do in the beginning is very you go just think of it as exercises. They're not things you want to put on a reel or showcase. They're very it's very raw and the point of these exercises is just to kind of quickly narrow in the style that you want for these characters and yeah,
Nice.
so yeah, a lot of this stuff right here is just kind of so after figuring out pretty much the animation style and character for this hero type, and then you kind of start diving into AI development and this is where the real fun part, the fun comes in, because now you're creating almost like these puzzle pieces, in which you have to figure out the best way to kind of have them go in and out of each other and design the animation and poses so that they kind of work in this like web of like animation states.
This is kind of when really is kind of when like design and animation really kind of be locked in step in terms of like what everyone's thinking and really just being aligned on everything.
Yeah, I would say it's a daily um, communication process between like design, code, AI, and audio and effects. It's just to make it's very important to make sure everyone's on the same page because if you're not, then you may be animating this like very serious uh, animation style, and then someone else might be doing like some other tangent. Like I don't know, you just keeping everyone on track is pretty important in bringing these characters to life because animation is just one part of it, but like the audio, the voiceover work, even like the AI logic and the gameplay uh, buddy feel aspect of it is they all kind of collectively come together to make this living, breathing character in the game.
Nice.
So this is kind of towards the end, in which pretty much everything's pretty much figured out, and at this point, you're just powering through and just going to town and filling in the game with all these vignettes and whatnot.
Nice. Um, we have just a couple more here. I love these. These are so awesome. Um, we have I can play this one here. So I guess I should say if anyone has, I see questions popping in the thread and stuff like that. We're gonna play a couple more videos and then we're gonna get to viewer questions. So if you got questions, just pop them in and we'll get to them in about just a few minutes here. So
This.
oops,
Uh-oh.
we got a crash.
This was this was pretty crazy because I'm in the suit here along with our other designer, Mo Alavi. Uh, I remember him coming to me one day, and it was like around 10 a.m. And I'm just kind of like zoning out, animating, and he was like, "We need to get this fight shot and blocked in by today, or else it's gonna get cut." And I'm like, "No, this is we can't let that happen." So we just power brainstorm for like a solid hour and just trying to quickly choreograph whatever we can think of. And then we broke out for lunch, came back on the stage and just roughly winged it. We weren't sure that it was gonna work out. So you could kind of see on the left screen that we just threw it in into its like very primitive form just so that he can play with it uh, and tons of play testing because we have to work out the timing and spacing of it like many times so that to the point where I guess the player it made sense for the player because you want the player to kind of naturally react to what's happening in front of them and just feel bad that their buddy Titan's getting pummeled and I think it was successful because a lot of the cleanness testing a lot of the players would just start running and shooting at the enemy Titan. So it was
And it was amazing that it almost ended up on the cutting room floor, right?
yeah, it was this close. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So does every animator generally kind of like shoot their own mocap or just some people more inclined to get in the suit or?
I would say just a few of us would kind of get in suit, and then other times we'd just get actors from around LA to kind of come in and suit up too. But for the most part, I think a lot of the animators on the team, they have like their vision and how they want to execute whatever thing they're working on. So they have a pretty solid blocked out scene or layout or previs that's super informative and it helps a lot, especially for the actors because they can see this block out and understand what's happening and then they can kind of replicate it in the motion capture.
Nice.
Yeah.
These are all. Once again, thanks for sharing these. These are really cool to check out and what I'm gonna do is I'll just kind of loop one here because we'll take some questions and then let's see what's in the comments here. There was one from yesterday. I'll find it, but the first one we'll go with is this one's from Karina. Hey Karina, this is we might have kind of touched on this. She's basically asking about first-person animation work. Are you animating the camera as well as the character? Is there a layout artist like there is for feature? I know you touched on that. You tend to go with the camera first before the character.
Yeah, and that's just me. Like, I would say, like, let's say if the other animators, they like Rainen would focus more on, let's say, the actual performance of the hands and the weapons first, and working the camera at the same time. So it really depends on what you're working on. If you're working on, let's say, a scripted moment, then you have this one workflow where you just kind of have to take into consideration the staging and pretty much the environment and the canvas of it and how your animation kind of fits in that. When you're doing, let's say, a weapon animation, it's more about graphically on screen, the performance of what the hands are doing and then and the feeling you get out of that. So
yeah. It's almost like kind of the difference between in-game and cinematic in a way. Like if you're standing still, you're probably worried more about the body mechanics, the framing of the hands, and kind of just the movements general. And then, but if you start moving, then it's kind of like, well, really kind of nailing the camera sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say it's like a push and pull compromise between putting more emphasis on the composition of the first person like moment, or putting the emphasis on the gameplay feel, like let's say a reload animation, making sure the timing is super tight and that it feels, you know, snappy and good, at least for the style that we were aiming for. So
Right. Oh, that's cool. All right, I'm gonna find that question here, but um, there's another one from Karina actually. She goes, while you're waiting for mocap data, do you start blocking camera work? I see a lot of camera movement in a lot of these shots. I guess. Yeah.
um, I would say before we would even go to the mocap stage, we would block out entire scenes with the camera work we had in mind. But once we get the mocap data, I actually don't really worry about the camera until I'm like halfway through the mocap process. So once I do my initial cleanup, that includes like adjusting timing and spacing of everything, and then working in like the clean arcs and whatnot. When I'm ready to do kind of massage in the like the key golden poses and breakdown keys on top, that's when I start to bring in the camera, because then I can then I'll start to kind of graphically pose out the character to fit the camera movement. So I would say 50-75% towards the process.
Okay. All right. This one is from this one's from Tyler Anthony, and his question is: have you ever dealt with post-project depression, and if so, how did you deal with it?
I don't think I've ever. It's more like you're running this marathon, and then once you cross the finish line, you're like, oh God, I'm done. Let me take a break. So I don't think
Yeah.
I really have a post-project depression. It's more, I would say 2 or 3 months would pass, and after the game would release, and I would look back and kind of reflect like all the craziness that entailed creating entailed in the project.
Yeah. I think like it's an interesting question because like I guess no matter what you um, kind of you whatever wording you want to use on it, but it's like I've been on projects where like you're so used to like, especially near the end of it, you're so used to like a routine where it's like we're just getting to the finish line,
Yeah.
and that final push, like however much time you're putting in, you're used to. It's kind of like it occupies so much space in your mind, at least for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like near the end of a project, you almost like wake up thinking about stuff. You're thinking about stuff in your idle
Yeah.
time, and it's just like it's parked in your head, right? And when you're done, it sometimes it stays in there, or sometimes it's just gone, and because it was parked in there for so long, like that space is now empty, and
Yeah.
the rest of your brain has to like fill it back up with your life. But
But like,
there's that
yeah. Yeah.
there's that one, like there's that stage or transition where like I don't know, it's almost like coming back from vacation or coming back from summer camp or something like that, where you're just in this routine, and then now you're not, and you're kind of like it's like whether you call it depression or melancholy or just this different vibe. It's like I feel like it's a real thing, and it's like I definitely like have felt that on certain projects,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's an interesting feeling, I
No,
guess.
yeah, I totally get it, because like during the project, when you're like just sitting there eating lunch, kind of like zoning out, all like the only thing you're kind of thinking about in the back of your head is just whatever you're working on, or
Right.
whatever thing like animation and even when you're going to sleep, you wake up and you have a nightmare. Like, oh wait, oh yeah, okay, I'll tackle it in 5 hours,
Yeah.
and then once the project is done, you're like, I can just kind of let that go, and it's almost freeing in a way.
Yeah, it's true. It's like it's it just rides with you, right? The worst I think I hate is like being stuck in whatever you're doing, like in whether it's animation or whatever, like at work. You're stuck in trying to figure out the problem. You haven't quite come to the solution yet, and like the weekend comes, and you're kind of
Mhm.
like you're like I'll pick that up on Monday, knowing that you're still stuck on it. So
Yeah,
for me, it's like many people can just separate. They're just like, "Yep, I'm going home," kind of thing. But for me, I feel like it kind of just like I said, it parks itself, and it just kind of like
it just lingers
lingers.
there.
It
Yeah,
lingers, right? And you're just like,
yeah,
you could just literally be like, you could be doing anything on the weekend. You'd be like, wait, oh, that thing, But
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, it's just like, ah, it's like, do I really have to be? That's the worst when you get stuck going into the weekend. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, it happens, but yeah, it's just one of the byproducts of working too hard.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're probably right. This one's from Jeremy Yinglong Shum. It's another Shum.
Yeah. Word.
Uh, he says ideas on how to keep busy with projects in between jobs.
Mm, keep busy. Oh man.
Like, think back to like I guess you probably maybe during Rhythm and Hues days or in between or something like that. You're doing some projects and or going from freelance gig to freelance gig or something like that.
Right. Well,
And
I guess in the sense of like from freelance gig to freelance gig, I would always have like a floating shot. I would kind of visit
hmm,
in between, like every once in a while, and that would be like in my head, oh, that's gonna be the next animated piece I'm gonna add to my reel. Um, but for the like, if you're already plugged in and you're going between projects, for me, it would be working on things I'm either rusty on, doing very quick and dirty exercises to kind of reiterate some principles or foundations. Like I remember a few years back, I think during downtime I signed up for an Anim Squad course, because my character like lip sync dialogue kind of animation style is pretty rusty. So just doing that alone, like I learned a lot, and trying to kind of take what I've learned and apply it to my stuff at work to reiterate that. And uh, yeah, I think for me, it's just working on very small, like 2 to 3 second exercises to make sure I'm not, I don't get too rusty in other aspects of animation. Because like animation itself is so big. There's so many styles and techniques you can work on.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's I think I feel the same way. Jumping between projects and I like your idea of kind of like a floating shot or a floating thing to do,
yeah,
because that's the nice creative outlet.
yeah,
For me, it's always trying to hit something that I'm really weak in,
yeah. Yeah,
whether
for
it's
me, it's like if I'm working on a lot of ground and stuff, then during my free time, I'll work on cartoony stuff, and vice versa. If I'm doing a lot of cartoony stuff, then downtime, I would do a lot of realistic body mechanics or work on lip sync or focus on other styles of animation.
yeah. I think even the past few years of working like very consciously trying to be better at doing stylized work like in my day-to-day job,
Yeah,
and when you're doing it day to day you're just bound to improve, right? So for me it's like doing that kind of stuff is so obviously fun as a day job, but then there's always like this. There's always something that you know, something happening in the industry that could be something that you should look at. And for me, it's like, you know, more like, you know, playing around with game engines and kind of looking at like the more realistic games and what the pipelines are there, right? And because those evolve much faster, right? It's just like, and if you're not in that loop, it can feel like there's this whole other part of the industry that's just like doing all this tech stuff, and you're just like, oh, you know, like it's yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good work out there, and I'm on a daily basis, I'm like always getting inspired. Like I would look at the stuff the guys would do at Sony, Santa Monica, or Ninja Theory, or even like at Riot or Blizzard. I'm like, oh man, they're hitting a good style, it's strong, and I would like download their videos and kind of analyze what they're doing. But, oh, that's a little clever trick they're doing there. All that stuff. So.
Yeah. All right. I think I hit the questions that were posted up basically. So, if you got any last second ones, we definitely can hit it. But we're going long on time, so I don't want to keep it too long, Shawn. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think you want to hit him. You want to hit him with some throwback stuff.
Oh sure. Why not?
Let's just real quick. Let's hit him with So I just want to take a second to give props to Shawn because he to kind of give context. He was a junior animator when we worked together, and I was a lead on the team, and you know, he was the first person I hired on the team, and immediately I knew, like I was like, man, I just got to get out of this guy's way because he's like a freight train, and he was just doing all this really crazy cool stuff, and I think the animators really defined the style, and I think you were definitely like a driver of kind of like finding the style of the game, and we had these cinematics in the game, and you know, they're pretty important to the publisher, and to try to hit, like, we had a Japanese publisher, we were trying to hit a certain style because of the Ninja Gaiden game, right? And we wanted to stay in that universe, but also kind of carve our own path. And Shawn really just kind of like took the wheel and basically like drove the cinematic process, right? And he was just doing such amazing work that I was just like, man, I gotta get out of the way and let Shawn just like he was just crushing it. And
dude, nah, man, it was
you were, dude, you were. I mean, it was a great team. Like the team was great. I just love that team. But you know, you're doing some great work on it. But I think is it 1 or 2? I think is the one with the.
I think 1 was when we all kind of like pitched in and collaborated on, and then 2 was towards the end of the project.
Yeah. Oh yes. Okay. So 1 here. Let's just play this for like. Let's put the volume on, and it's a little known, not very played game. So people didn't get exposed to to this possibly, but I think honestly, I think this is like. It was just I just had so much fun watching you guys put it together.
I think researching for this project, I've got to know a lot of Japanese 2D animators and really appreciated like their style of animating. You have like guys like
let's make up for lost time.
Like Mitsuo like from like the Evangelion series, and I think Itaka Nakamura or something like that, on like Cowboy Bebop and Sora the Stranger. Like they like take limited animation and straight ahead animation to like a different level. So it was like a super inspiring, and I kind of like took that and injected into these cinematics.
Yeah, definitely like big influences, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And even
so
like Team Ninja, like they had a lot of good like tips and tricks on how they handle third-person combat animations, and we kind of like took that into our style, like their infamous like jolt kind of flair, like the anticipation to the anticipation, or if it does like a hit frame, like just pause on it for a split second before following through.
what I thought was interesting was when they were sending us. So they were nice enough to send us like actual original Ninja Gaiden animations.
Yeah.
So we were we were looking like we were like framing through like Ryu Hayabusa's like his actual moves, and
Yeah.
that was pretty cool just to like have access to like Ninja Gaiden animations, right?
Yeah, he would do like a roundhouse kick, and then he would kind of like wind up for that anticipation, and then for 2 frames, the whole spine would just break. Like his chest would go 180 this way, and his thigh would be like in complete opposite direction before swinging through with the leg. But as a screenshot, it looked ugly. But when you play it, it just feels right. I don't know why, but it's just yeah.
Yeah, I think to give context on this is like we didn't have a cinematics team. We were a very small team, and Shawn, like I said, he took the wheel, and along with all the other the animators, we basically like Shawn basically like you previs this, right?
Yeah, no, Dan Edwards and I kind of like previs this first one together, and then once we got a layout going, and then that's when like you and Nathan Dunlap and Christian Brierley kind of jumped on board.
Yeah, Quack was in there too.
Quack and Craig, and yeah, man, I miss those guys. So.
Yeah, and then what I thought was really cool, and I think maybe speaks to like kind of like how you maybe started at University of Maryland with all this stuff. It's like you did all these all these effects in here. Is Shawn?
It was one of the very few rare moments where I could kind of utilize some of my 2D stuff into these shots. So
yeah, I think once everyone started seeing like the effects in there and the animation was, and just the camera movements, it was just like everyone knew it was just like this is what we want, right? And I think what's funny is I still remember when we were shooting reference for this, right? This one here. So Shawn cuts this one together. What you just saw, that cinematic, is this is the real life previs, right? And we shot the camera angles, all that stuff like that, and then Shawn put the effects on. It's
yeah. We didn't have a lot of time, so we just, you know what? Let's just do it for real and just take a cell phone or whatever and just start.
This is after soccer. We're all sweaty.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh my god, the effects make it. That's everything. Right?
It's all about.
But really, it's like like almost like shot for shot, really finding the pacing and the timing and.
Yeah, a lot of the edits are pretty fast. Like I would say 6 to 12 frames. So you don't have to really focus on the actual movement in a way. It's more just get a really good. Think of it like as a really good screenshot, and just imagine it as a painting in a way, and just nail the pose, and the pose will read for itself, and it'll be like a string of those together, and the energy actually comes through the editing process, and making sure the energy kind of flows smoothly across the shots, across the edits. So
yeah, this is
almost like Mad Max, because they have like a very similar style in which a lot of things are happening, but they kind of keep everything staging wise centered. So as they're rapidly going through from shot to shot, your eyes aren't darting everywhere. It's pretty centered on screen the whole time. So it doesn't get confusing.
Yeah, it was just like it was just so fun because we had free reign, right? It was just
Yeah, yeah, no,
yeah, it was good
it was
times. But
very creative
yeah.
liberation.
So here, let me I can just kind of let her. So you got time for one more question, Sean? One more question came in, and this is from Karina. She said, "Don't know if this is a dumb question, but what are both your work process at work? Do you listen to music, watch something for inspiration?" Not a dumb question. A good question. It's
No, that's
you want to take that, Sean?
yeah, that's no, that's good. Whenever I'm like starting on a shot, especially blocking, actually wear headphones to kind of block out any noise because during the initial blocking process, I'm trying to like figure out just the timing of everything. And if I'm listening to music, at least for me, that kind of affects what I'm doing in the beginning. Because if I'm like listening to like fast tempo music, that's gonna kind of affect my blocking process. If I'm listening to like really slow music, it's gonna affect it. So I have to like almost be like in this bubble of complete silence, so I can really concentrate on the timing of the blocking itself. But once I nail down the blocking, timing and spacing wise, and then it's just pure like splining and polishing and adding noise and flair, then that's when I, put on some music and kind of zone out. Because at that point, I'm just finessing like pixel by pixel. I'm not, the timing of it's already figured out, so I can just listen to whatever.
By the way, this is for everyone out there. This is the previs for the ending. It's the ending cinematic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would say like part 2 of that fight sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the only time we see Hayabusa in the in our game, or well, he's in the game, but he's in the game. Spoilers, but yeah, to kind of, I guess we can play this through, but to answer the question as well as like I don't know if it's just me getting old or what's going on, but like I can't even like have a hard time listening to things when I'm animating anymore now. Like it's I used to like be, just music, podcasts.
Yeah.
I tried audiobooks, but that was just way too hard. But podcasts, like while you're animating, and just even like a video on the second monitor and stuff like that. But I don't know why I found myself more now just like not even putting headphones on.
Yeah,
And
no,
I
totally get it. Yeah.
The only time I put headphones on now, I feel like, is like if it's loud in the office and I'm just like, I just want to chill, and
that's exactly what I do.
and I don't know, like something changed along the way where I was listening to music all the time and now I don't listen to any.
Yeah,
I'll probably go back to listening to music all the time.
Multitask goes down.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I'm like, oh man, this is I'm struggling with this thing. I just gotta turn everything off and just like laser focus in. But
yeah, no, I totally get it. Just laser focus, I would say the first 75%, and it's only when towards the very end for me where I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna track the arcs and whatnot. Then I can throw on music because it doesn't require too much distraction.
Yeah. Sure. So this is another cinematic that Sean's official title on the game was cinematic director, right? And all this was like kind of the brainchild of a lot of influences, a lot of original ideas, and just like I think it was just by this time in the project, because it was so late in the project as well, it was like it was even more free reign. It was kind of like Sean, we need to do something cool. We need to do something cool here. So
Nathan helped me a lot on this one because I was like a stickler of like a lot of people tend to focus on the actual rig, the body itself when like posing out stuff. But for me, because I tend to focus more on the overall energy flow of the shot, and that includes what the body is doing and what the cloth is doing and what the effects is doing. Because for me, all of that works as one unit. And if the scarf is doing random things, and that kind of throws off the shot for me. If the effects are doing random things, it throws off the shot for me. Like I need the effects to have very purposeful like directionality towards the lines, so it conveys movement and direction. And like even for like Ryu Hayabusa's scarf, like as he's spinning around like that, like Nathan took a lot of like, he did like frame by frame and made sure like this scarf was like rotating perfectly, and it all kind of maintained this like perspective in which it's all pointing towards like a direction they're going. So
yeah, no, it was a great team effort for sure.
yeah.
Well, that I don't want to take up too much time. It's we're getting, I think we're at the end of it, and Shawn, thanks for taking the time and for doing this. I think it was really helpful to
Yeah, man.
kind of
Thanks
see
for
the
having me, man.
process.
This was a little nerve-wracking, but I don't usually do this often.
No, it was good, man. I'm glad we finally did it. So thanks everyone out there for tuning in and checking out, and for all the questions and everything. So until next time, take care, everyone.